Do you nerd for Final Fantasy? Because just about everyone who knows this channel knows I absolutely nerd for Final Fantasy. But when Sir Tom and Lady Laci from Do You Nerd pointed out to me that there was some wonderful Final Fantasy merchandise, from Coca Cola no less, and in blind bag form, well, I had to jump onto eBay and get myself some. So if you want to see me opening up these 20-year-old blind bag treats, then you just wait until after these. So here we are at the blind bag opening section of this video, and this is the bit, if you've stayed this far, this is the bit that you want to see. Now, blind bags aren't usually my thing. If you want to see a good blind bag opening, then you want to go to Gurnaldinho Plays. There will be a link in the description. But of course, you're going to see these blind bags being opened here first in a slightly less professional manner. Now, as I said at the beginning, it was Do You Nerd. It was the wonderful Sir Tom and Lady Laci from Do You Nerd that pointed these things in my direction. Now, I had no idea at the time that they came in blind bag form. They just had figures that they'd picked up from a convention, and that was wonderful. I wanted some of those figures. But obviously when you jump onto eBay and the likes, you can see that these things that initially came in these wonderful blind bags and were attached to the top of Coca Cola bottles. Not a sponsor, by the way, although I do drink a metric ton of the stuff. So rather than taking the easy way out and just picking and choosing the figures and the variation of the figures that you can get out these blind bags, I decided without a doubt I was going to get the blind bag itself, and it's going to be random. I'm not going to know what's in it, you're not going to know what's in it. Is it likely that I'm going to be disappointed with what's in it? Well, at least it's going to be Final Fantasy something. Now let's take a look at the backs, because at the backs it tells you, obviously in the front it tells you which Final Fantasy is going to be covered, and it's 7 and 8 in this one. On the back you have a list of the characters that you can get in it and the variations. So they come in either like a painted form or a crystal form. So basically one's just going to be one solid red colour, or you can get these wonderful little painted ones. Now, I don't think I'm likely to get any of the painted ones, I'm just not that lucky. But with this one at least, it's only 2 Final Fantasies in here. We have Final Fantasy VII, we have Final Fantasy VIII. I've got a 50-50 chance of getting at least a Final Fantasy VII character out of this one. So we'll put that aside because that's going to be the first one that I'll open. Now the next blind bag, as you can see from the front, there you go, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy IX. And yes, Final Fantasy VIII, one of my least favourite Final Fantasy games. It's not my least favourite anymore, that's another story. But 8's my least favourite of the old school games, and we're still in there with a chance to get an 8 figure. But we have figures from 7, we have figures from 9, and those are 2 solid games that I absolutely loved, and I'm hoping at least I get at least from 9 if not 7 in this pack here. So I'll set that aside because that will be the second pack I will open. Now the last blind bag, this one is solely for Final Fantasy X. Now I did enjoy Final Fantasy X. It was a step up from the PlayStation games when it moved on to the PlayStation 2, and the graphics got better and we had voiceover and acting, and it was, well, it made it a little bit more interesting. It brought it up with the times, so I do thoroughly enjoy Final Fantasy X. There are of course a selection of characters in this as well, some that I want, some that I'm not too fussed about, but at the end of the day it's all going to be a Final Fantasy character, and that's, well, it's a win-win for me surely. So we'll put this aside and we'll go on with the opening. So first up, yes, as I said, we're going to go with the Final Fantasy VII and VIII possibility pack. And we do have a number of characters in here. We have of course Cloud, Strife and Aerith, Sephiroth, Tifa, a Chocobo and a Mog. I would love either of them, I won't lie. We have, then we go into Final Fantasy VIII and we have to put up with Squall, Renoa, Sifa, Laguna, the Saboteur, the Sabotender, whatever that is. I mean, I believe it was the Cactor in this particular one, but why? Why not just call it a Cactor? And then of course we move on to having either the Crystal version, or we have not the crystal version, the painted version, and let's open this boy up. I'm going to make sure that the figure is well pushed down. I do have a pair of sharp scissors here. Thanks Gurnaldino for the tips. You know, watching so many of his videos, I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing here. And let's open this thing for the first time in, well, 20 years or more. And we have a red one. And who do we have here? It looks like Laguna. Now, I knew I was going to get the red ones, and I wasn't expecting not to get the red ones, and I'll try to get this little guy in focus because, well, he's tiny. Now the modelling's not too bad on it. It's one of the chibi ones. I believe there's two different versions that you could get with it. You could get a kind of naturalistic, real looking one, and you could get this chibi one. So there's the first one. It's coming out the blind bag. It will sit against that wall of PlayStation there, and we'll see what happens with the next. Okay, so next up we have the bag that has got 7, 8 and 9 in it, and well, let's just have a look see at this one. Again, there is a list of what we've got in the bag. We've got obviously Cloud and Aerith, Sephiroth, Tifa, Barret. Right, these are the ones that I really want. Red, Red 13 would be fantastic. I would love Red 13, but you know what? We're only going to find out when we actually open this, so let's go for this. Feel the air coming out. Now, there was an easy tear tab on that, but I don't care. And it looks like another red one. Oh no, we have a painted one! Now, okay, this is from Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy IX, but we have one of the painted ones, and I'm absolutely over the moon with that. I'm so happy to get one of that. Now, I'll try to get his name back in my head. He was, from Final Fantasy IX. Oh, what was his name again? I can't for the life of me remember. But, you know what, I don't care. This is the guy here. We have this wonderful character. He's the painted version, he's not the red version. I'm over the moon with that, and we will sit him right there. So here we are with the last one. This one is Final Fantasy X and X alone. Now, again, I believe you have variations in this one. Yes, we have the real variation, so the one that looks like itself, the painted one, like this boy down here. We also have their deformation one, so one that doesn't look like the character. We have the red crystal deformation, and we have the red crystal normal version. So I'm hoping it's a painted one. Now, this being Final Fantasy X, it's only Final Fantasy X that's in here. So let's open this 20-year-old blind bag up, and trying to get into this carefully. And what do we have? We have another painted one, and this is fantastic. Would you take an absolutely stunning look at that one? That's blown me away. That is such a good one to get into the collection. I'll bring him closer because obviously he's going to be the winner. He's going to be the winner from this blind bag opening, and why not? So let's just take another close look at the other two again. We have our Final Fantasy IX painted character as well, and again the detail is lovely. The fact that I got two painted ones is just outstanding. And a little crystal example, and I don't know if I'll be able to show him that well on this. But there we go, we have our little crystal Coca Cola Final Fantasy VIII figure. Now, there you go, my friends, that's the opening of the bag. I will move the camera now, a nice jump cut just to get a closer look at all three of them. So there you go, my friends, that was the three blind bags opened, and yes, I was kind of pleased with the results. I didn't get any Final Fantasy VII characters, which was a bit disappointing, but I did get two that did sort of make up for it. Now, the first one that I opened was Laguna there, and we have Laguna from Final Fantasy VIII, and it's not my favourite Final Fantasy, and this is one of the characters that made it not so. I don't know if you've played it. I don't want to give too many spoilers just in case you haven't and you want to play this game, but you kind of go into sort of dream sequences where you go back in time or forward in time, whatever way you look at it, and you have to play as this character here rather than your main character that you would think you were playing through with, you know, Squall. But there we go, we have this crystal chibi type, the deformed Laguna from Final Fantasy VIII. And second up, Amaranth finally got his name, and there we are. This was wonderful. This was getting one of these beautifully painted little figures, and they're wonderful for what they are. They were a freebie given away with Coca Cola and Coca Cola Bottles. And there we go, we have this wonderful little figurine which will stand proudly up there. And the creme de la creme, the number one from the third bag of all things. Now that bag was only going to be Final Fantasy X, but to get the painted tidus or tidus, I much prefer calling them tidus. I know the actual pronunciation is supposed to be tidus, but no, it's tidus for me, and it'll probably always be tidus. Like Eris is Eris and not Aerith. I don't want to lisp any more than I normally do. But there we go, we have this wonderful painted little tidus, and he's holding the Coke bottle top, which is a fantastic little touch. And it's the chibi version, which is fine by me, rather than the real version that you could get. I say the real version, the normal looking version, but this is probably the best from that pack anyway, and I was so happy to get that. Now, if you've had any experience of these blind bags yourself, please talk about that down in the comments. And if you want to talk about Final Fantasy at all or blind bags, and no, I won't be doing any more, like I said, thanks very much for Tom and Laci sending me this way and letting me pick up these things. I might pick up the individual characters without blind bag options. I'll want to pick and choose. But thank you for sending me the information that I needed to find these and get them into my life. And if you want to see a blind bag opening, you go to Gurnaldinho Plays. Links are in the description for both of these channels, both Do You Nerd and Gurnaldinho Plays. So go and see them. Now, if you want to talk about any of these characters, Final Fantasy, if you just want to shoot the breeze, then down there in the comments, because the interaction between you and me, well, it's what makes YouTube special. Thank you very much for watching as always, and now before I go and start playing with my new figures, cheerio! Okay, we're in at 4 minutes 30, and so here we are at the... Oh, you f***ing wee dick.